If you want to be confident in working with indices and roots ready for your GCSEs, then you've come to the right place. In this video, we will look at indices, or you might have heard them be called powers before, as well as roots, and we will look at evaluating numbers with indices and evaluating numbers with roots. This will include confidently knowing your square numbers and cube numbers. And so if you wish to get involved with this video and you want to have a go at some questions for yourself to practice, grab yourself something to write with and on. And if you struggle with multiplication, a calculator might help you today, though it is not essential, so don't worry if you've not got one. If you need a little bit longer to look at the task board and see what's coming up, then pause the video, otherwise we're going to jump right in. Okay, first of all, looking at indices, I'll use a really simple example. So if we have the number 5, and we put a little 2 to the side of it, this large number, which is just an ordinary number, it's nothing special, we refer to as the base, and this small number we refer to as the index, which is the singular for indices. So when we talk about more than one index, we are talking about indices. You may have also heard this referred to as a power. In some parts of the world, depending on where you're watching from, this might be the exponent. But all of these words just mean the same thing. When we have to the power of 2, you'll have heard that be referred to as squared, so I'd read this as 5 squared. When we have to the power of 3, that's cubed, we would refer to that as 5 cubed. And any power above that, so for example 4, we would just read 5 to the power of 4. We don't have a special word for the ones 4 and above. If we move over to this example on the left, I've written 5 squared. That means 5 times 5. And the little power or index, in this case the 2, tells us how many times to multiply the base number together. So this is saying in my calculation, I need to write down 2 5s being multiplied together. So 5 squared is the same as 5 times 5, which is 25. The square root is the exact opposite. So if we say that 5 squared is 25, we're looking at how to get back from the 25 to the number we squared in the first place. And the number we squared to get to 25 was 5. So squaring and square rooting, and that's what this is, we would pronounce that as square root. Let me write that down. Square root. They are inverses. Just like addition and subtraction do the opposite, they are inverses. Just like multiplication and division do the opposite because they're inverses, squaring and square rooting are also inverses. One undoes the other. They do the opposite thing. So if 5 squared is 25, the square root of 25 is 5. It takes us back to where we started. Here, we've not got a little 2 for our power, we've got a little 3. That little 3 tells us how many times to multiply the base number together. So when we get 3 cubed, or 3 to the power of 3, that's saying we need to multiply 3 3s together. So 3 times 3 times 3. Well, 3 times 3 is 9. Times that by 3 is 27. And therefore, if we do the opposite, the cubed root of 27 is asking us, what did we multiply by itself 3 times to get to 27? What do I need to do to get back to where I started? The number I started with was 3. Now notice on the square root, we don't actually write a little 2, even though it means square root. That's because it's kind of like the original. So the square root is just the square root symbol. If we want any higher roots, like the cube root or the 4th root or the 5th root, we put the little number above the square root sign. So the little 3 in the cubed root of 27. And let's up that power once more. If I've got 2 to the power of 4, that's just telling me I want 4 2s multiplied together. So in my calculation, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 2s, and we're multiplying them. So 2 times 2 is 4, times that by 2 is 8, times that by 2 is 16. And again, if we want to do the inverse of that, that would be the 4th root of 16. What do I need to multiply by itself 4 times to get 16? And that takes us right back to the beginning, and that number was 2. Now, something that can be super useful to you in this topic is knowing your square numbers, and really as high as you can, but there's not much need to go beyond 15 squared. Most people will go to 12 squared, some people will go to 10 squared, and then cube numbers as well. So our square numbers, you can do these in your head or you can do them on a calculator, and the easiest way to do them is in order and ask yourself the question. So square numbers is timesing something by itself. So what's 1 times 1? It's 1. What's 2 times 2? 4. What's 3 times 3? It's 9. What's 4 times 4? What's 5 times 5? 25. What's 6 times 6? 36. What's 7 times 7? It's 49. 8 times 8 is 64. 9 times 9 is 81. 10 times 10 is 100. 11 times 11 is 121. And 12 times 12 is 144. And you could keep going. But memorising, I would say, the first 10 or the first 12 will be really useful for when you get those GCSE questions that has square numbers somewhere within it. Not necessarily just a question about square numbers, but a question that involves square numbers in another way. It saves you the time having to stop and work them out if you can just reel them off. And the same with cube numbers. We don't really go too high with cube numbers. 1 times 1 times 1, because remember we've got to do it 3 times. So 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. Hopefully you can see these get bigger much quicker. And actually a lot of people stop there. They say the first 5 cube numbers is enough. However, if you want to continue and you want to memorise more of those, you're more than welcome to. Now this one's going to be quite a short video. I've not got too much to go through with you today. We just want to get used to reading the notation for indices and roots and working out their answers. So for example, 4 squared tells me I'm multiplying 2 4s together. So that means I need to do 4 times 4, which is 16. The next one is 6 cubed, or 6 to the power of 3. That's telling me I need to multiply 3 6s together. So 6 times 6 times 6. And depending on how confident you are with multiplication, you might get as far as doing 6 times 6 is 36, and then not know what 36 times 6 is, and that's fine. That's not something we should all necessarily have memorised. You might be able to do a written method for that and do 36 times 6. And if this was on a non-calculator paper, that may be what you decide to do. Or if it's on a calculator paper, you can use your calculator. But just in case you've not got one, 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 3 is 18. And remembering to add our 3, 19, 20, 21. So the answer is 216. So you can stop and use a multiplication method if you need to, or you can use a calculator, or you might just know it. So just to reiterate with that one, so 6 times 6 was 36, and then when we times that by 6 again, that's 216. And then our last one, 10 to the power of 6, that's telling me I need to multiply together 6 tens. So 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, keep going, times 10 times 10, that is 6. 10 times 10 is 100, times by 10 is 1,000, times by 10 is 10,000, times by 10 again is 100,000, and times by 10 again is 1 million. So that one got big quickly. If you are using a calculator and want to know which buttons to press to work these out, if you are wanting to square a number, so for example 4 squared, you will be looking at this button here, which has the little 2 on it. And when I press that one, I get squared on my calculator screen, hitting equals, and we get the answer 16. Now that is fairly similar on all Casio models. They might be in slightly different positions, but generally they are the same, and I would always recommend a Casio model at GCSE. If we want a higher power, for example 6 cubed, I'm going to press this button with the little square. What that does is it allows me to type in what power I want. So I've typed in 6 cubed there, again hitting equals, and then once more, if I want a higher power again, 10 to the power of 6, I will put 10 in, I will hit that button, and I can type in the power I want and hit equals. Here are a few for you to have a go at. And remember what I said, you can refer back to your square numbers, maybe you copied them down. If you didn't, feel free to go back so you've got them written down. You can do a written method if you need to, or you can use a calculator. Pause the video if you need more time to do these, and then I'll go through the answers. So 8 squared is 8 times 8, which is 64. 5 cubed would be 5 times 5 times 5, remembering we need 3 5s in the calculation. That's 125. And then 2 to the power of 7 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. How many is that? 6. I need one more. Times 2 equals, and this is how I would do this one in my head, and using my fingers, I'd go 2 times it by 2 is 4, times it by 2 is 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. And there's my 7 2s. Let me just do that again. 2, 4, doubling every time, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. It's easy with 2s. After that, it becomes a bit more challenging. And then just the same, we will do it with roots. So remember, when we don't put the little 2 on the root, that is just the normal square root. So the square root of 81 is asking me, what number do I times by itself to get 81? And that would be 9. Because if I just do a little side note up here, 9 times 9 equals 81. It's the reverse of squaring. I'm very lucky that for my cube root question, we've just done the opposite of this. So I now know that 216 was the number I got from cubing 6. So I know that 6 times 6 times 6 is 216, and therefore the cubed root of 216 is 6. And then for this question, we have got the fourth root of 1, which is a nice easy one. What do I times together 4 times to get 1? That would just be 1. In fact, any root of 1 will always be 1. If we are inputting square roots into our calculator, the ordinary square root is here. So I can type in the square root of 81 and hit equals to get my answer. If I want cubed root, there is shift and square root specifically to get cubed root, but it's easier to remember that if you press shift and this button, you can input any higher root. So I could type in the cubed root of 216 and get my answer, or shift again, I could type in the fourth root of 1 and get my answer that way. Some for you to have a go at. Remember to pause the video so you've got time to answer the questions. I'm going to go through the answers right away. So we have got the square root of 49. I know it's the square root because there isn't a number on the root. So that just means what do I times by itself to get 49? Knowing my square numbers here would be super helpful. That one is just 7. The cubed root of 1000, you might know this one, or you might have needed to type it into your calculator, is 10, because 10 times 10 times 10, that's 3 times, is 1000. And the fourth root of 625 is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25, times that by 5 is 125, and times that by 5 is 625. And already we are at our multiple choice questions. So I will put a 10-second timer up for each question. If you do need longer or the timer just doesn't work for you, then feel free to pause the video as and when you need to. Your first one is 6 squared, and here are your options. The answer to this one is D, 36. Your next question is 5 to the power of 4. We have seen this number come up a couple of times in the lesson, so you might be able to figure it out from that. That one is A, 625. What about 1 to the power of 8? Now that's quite a high power. But what happens if you multiply 8 ones together? You just get 1. Well done if you said A for that question. On to some roots now. What is the square root of 4? So what do you times by itself to get 4? That is B, 2. How about the cubed root of 64? What do you times by itself 3 times to get 64? That was B4. Well done if you went for that one. It's quite easy to slip into the trap of saying 8 because 8 squared is 64, but we're looking for what cubed to get 64. Well done if you made it through those questions. There are now 8 questions on screen all mixed up to practice these skills. Pause the video here because I will be putting the answers on the next slide. And here are your answers. Please make sure you go through and just check you're getting the hang of this and getting them right. And if there's anything you're not quite sure on, be sure to go back and watch the examples. Sometimes just seeing them again can make it a little bit easier for you to understand. Well done for taking part in this video lesson today. If you have any questions at all, please post them down below in the comments. We do try to answer all of the questions related to the content of the video. And remember that every time you engage in some sort of revision or independent study, you are improving your chances of success in your GCSEs. Remember to subscribe for more lesson videos. If you also enjoy short form content such as revision, quizzes and tips, then make sure to follow us over on TikTok and Instagram as well. For now, I'm Charlotte. Thank you for watching this video. I'll see you again in another one soon.